Maybe you have a lot of things going on. Maybe you have some obligations you need to take care of, maybe some contracts. And that's what we are going to be talking to our good friend, attorney Kim Baer, about this morning. Good morning, Kim. How are you today?
Good morning, Lou. I'm doing great. How about you?
We are doing wonderful. Now, we are talking about some obligations or some contracts that people might have and how they are needed to be enforced. So let's first talk about what a contract is.
Right. So a contract is really just a legally enforceable agreement. So you've got maybe you're going to sell things, you're buying things, or it's for a service. And so once you have an agreement on all the terms, then you have a contract.
Okay, and how are these contracts enforced? What do you have to have in order for these contracts that you may have agreed to be enforced?
Right. And I wanted to talk about this because I think a lot of people are still trying to get a lot of work done around their house. And so this keeps coming up. We keep getting calls from lots of people. And so if you want to make sure you have an enforceable contract, whether or not you're the person doing the service or maybe you hired somebody to do something around the house, you really need to make sure that you have what's called a meeting of the minds. So you need to have an agreement on all the terms, the work that's going to be done, the price, when is it going to be done, if you're buying things, how many things are you buying, so that kind of thing. You need all the terms to be agreed upon.
Okay, now you said that they need to be agreed upon. Now, how do they need to be agreed upon? Text messages, emails, how would you suggest?
Yeah, well, ideally, as a lawyer, I'd love to see you have a written contract, but if you have a text message or you have emails going back and forth, that's great. And so, if you're doing that, if you're emailing with somebody or texting with somebody, just make sure that when you think you've got a deal, maybe you're going to hire a painter and they're going to paint your house and you've kind of gone back and forth, just send a summary text or a summary email saying, hey, here's my understanding. Do you agree? Here's what you're doing. Here's what I'm paying you, that kind of thing.
Okay, now would you suggest someone print that out so they do actually have a hard copy of it just to be on the safe side?
Ideally, especially if you're using text messages, and there's always a concern that you might lose your phone, and if it's not backed up. But because later down the road, if you're going to have to enforce it, if something, maybe you pay somebody up front and then they never show up to do the work, you're going to have to prove that there was an agreement. So there needs to be an agreement on all the terms. And then if there's a problem, we call that a breach of contract. And then you would have to show that you've actually been harmed by that breach. So for instance, if I hired you, Lou, to come over and paint my house, but I didn't pay you any money and you just never showed up, we had an agreement, there was a breach, but I'm not out any money, so I probably don't have any damages.
Okay, but if you did pay ahead of time, like for supplies or whatever, then that's a whole totally different story then, right?
Exactly. And then, the other thing that we keep seeing in our office, and I bet you we see this almost every week, is somebody calls and they hired somebody to do some work on their house. And there was an initial agreement, and then the work changed. Either something got added or something was deleted or maybe material changed, and they didn't put it in writing. There's no text message, there's no email, and then the homeowner gets a bill that's just way more than what they thought it was going to be. And so now we've got a problem because the work's been done, so the person wants to be paid, but you never agreed to pay that kind of money. So one of the tips I just wanted to share with the viewers today, based on my 32 years of experience, is a text message or email. Always make sure if you make any changes to the contract that you've got that in writing, whether it's text, email, or a written contract.
Okay, well, what about somebody said, well, we had an oral agreement. Does that hold any water?
It can. An oral contract can be enforceable. If you can't have oral contracts in certain instances, like for instance, if you're selling real estate. But if an oral contract to do work, that's fine. But then you kind of get into a he said, she said. So then you need some witnesses. So it's always just easier, in today's world, text message, email, if you're not going to write something out. I mean, shoot, I've had a case where we enforced a deal that was written on a napkin, but it was in writing and everybody signed it. So.
All right, I think that seems to be the key here, is that you have an agreement with somebody. Let's just say they are doing work for you. You have proof that you agreed upon something that was done. You have a contract and you have proof of that contract.
Right. Right. And you don't have to say, hey, I don't trust you, so we need this in writing. I mean, you can just say, hey, just so that we're all on the same page, here's what I understand. I mean, a great example is somebody comes to paint the inside of your house and then you add on the trim, but you don't, and you like the painter, you think he's great, but you don't talk about a price. I mean, we just want to make sure there's no surprises at the end.
All right, there you go. That's the bottom line. No surprises. Have your contract, have proof of what you guys agreed upon prior to what is the work that is being done. Now, if people have any questions or anything else, Kim, can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. Just give us a call, 515-279-2000. We're always happy to have a phone call and see if we can help. So.
All right, Kim Baer, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Bye, Lou.